Hi all. So today let's take a look at the library Ngrx schematics. So it's basically a scaffolding library which can be used for creating Ngrx components like store, effects, reducers, actions, etc. using the Angular CLI itself. So since this is built using schematics which works well with the Angular CLI, it provides an easy method to create each of these components using commands. So for trying out the NGRS schematics, I have created an Angular 12 application without adding any NGRS features. So the first step we need to do is we need to install the NGRS schematics. So we can add the schematics. So this is the command. So it will add the latest schematics to our code. So the schematics library has been added as a dependency in our package. So now it's asking whether it should be set as the default collection. So let's give it as yes. So now let's see what are the changes that happened. Now if you go to the package.json, you can see that the ngrs schematics is added as a dev dependency. And in the Angular JSON, there is something called the CLI, and within that the option called default collection. So here you can see that the ngr schematics has been added as a default collection. So the significance of this is that when we try to run the ngr schematics, we need not give the namespace, that is ngrs/schematics, along with each of the components. If we don't set this as the default schematic or the default collection, we need to give that as the namespace. Now let's install all the other Ngrx dependencies. So currently I am adding the store, the effects, and the store devtools. So our dependencies have been installed. So again you can see that all these have been added in the package.json. Now let's try out each of the Ngrx schematic commands. So let's first try out the schematics to generate the store. So the command is ng generate. So I am using the short notation ngg. And in case I had not given the default command, the default collection, I would need to give something like this. So since we had given the NGRS schematics as the default collection, we need not give this namespace and we can directly call this state. So ng generate state, or I can use the shorthand st and I can give the name. So this will be the name of the state. So I have not given any option. So it will be asking for multiple options. So the first is the like the path of the file name where I need to register this store. So I am giving it as app.module.ts, and you can see that it has generated an index.ts and an app module. So it has updated the app module. So if you check here, you can see that the store module is imported from the store and it is registered here in the imports store module dot. Since I didn't give any flag like the root, so it will be adding this as a features store. So here it is added, and if you go into the index.ts, you can see that it has created a state interface with the default name which we gave there, and it has created the templates for the reducers and the meta reducers, which we will be registering here in our app module.ts. So here you can see the reducers and the meta reducers from the index.ts file. So now let's revert these changes and let's try out what are the other options which are available within this command. So the same thing which we gave here, the module, we can give in this format. And earlier I told that there's an option called root. So if we give this option, instead of creating it as a feature it will be creating it as a root state itself. So that is another option. So let's try it out. So now you can see that if you go inside the app module, it has created the store module dot for root, and it has imported the reducers and the meta reducers as expected from the index.ts. And one more thing to note is that it has added the store devtools module, and if it is production it is not enabled, and if it is not production it is enabled. So we can you can see that actually the folder name, that is where the store has been created, it is inside a folder called reducers. So now let's revert this, and there is an option using which you can change the path of this or the name of the folder in which the state is created. So I am going to give the state path. I am giving it as store, and also there is an option to change the name of the interface. So it was using the default state itself. So in case I need to give another name, I can add this. So now if we go to the app module, so in the app module, there is no change. If you go to the index.ts, you can see that the interface name has changed to user state, which we provided in the state interface. And then the folder in which the index.ts is created, that has changed to src app store. So that is the name which we gave in the state path. Okay, so one more option is there. We will revert this change. So in case I do not need to create any initial state, I can give the minimal flag. So here I am giving the minimal. Now what it will do is it will create an empty initial state. So in the app module, so store module dot forward, and it will not import any reducers. It will create an empty object. Next, let us see how to create actions using schematics. So again, I can use the ng generate command. So here I can either give action or the short notation A, and I am giving the action name as user. So I have not given any options. So it will ask for multiple options. First is the prefix. So by default, all the actions will be prefixed with the string load. So I am not giving anything. The second option is whether this is an actually an API action. So in case there is any success or failure indicators, we can provide that. So I am not opting for that. And now it is asking whether it needs to create a like a function. So by default it is yes. So now it has created the actions file. Let's go ahead and see that. So this is the user action file. So here you can see that it has created using a action. So action creator, and the prefix of the action is load, and also it has created a spec file for our actions. So these are the files that got generated. Now let's remove this and try the options in the command. So the first one we are going to override is the prefix. So instead of load, I am passing it as get. The second one is creators. So we saw that it was using an action creator. I am going to turn it as false. So it won't be using the action creators. And the next thing is the API. So I am turning it on so that you can see the success and failure actions. Now let's run this. And one more option is there. I am going to skip the test creation. So skip tests is the option. So now you can see that the test is not created. And if you come here, you can see that the actual action creator has been replaced with the actual implementation. It has created the types for each of the action, and it is exporting it as a type. And also you can see that the success and the failure actions are also created. So this is useful in case it is an API or anything. So this is the these are the main options which we gave here, and other thing is the get. So you can see that each of the action is being prefixed by the option which we gave here in the command, that is get instead of the load. So one more thing to note is that the user actions which we have created, it is created in the root app folder itself. So now we can, like, we have options to override this. So let's revert these changes and recall our previous command, and I am turning off the API and the creator's false. I want the action creator, and even the prefix also I am removing it. So there are other options like flat. So by default, the flat option is true. That's why we saw that the actions which we created using schematics, it is created in the root folder itself. So we can turn it off. So what happens is that it will create a folder with the name user. So now let's try this option. So here you can see that it has been created under a folder called user, and the action is similar to previous sample. So one more option is there regarding the structure of the folder. So there is an option in which we can group our um, all our actions in a single folder. So in case we have multiple actions, all these actions will be created in a folder called actions. So I am setting the group flag as true. So now you can see that it has been created in a folder called the inside the root folder, there is an actions folder. And within that, since we gave the flat option as false, it will create the actions in the user folder. Now let's try out the schematics for the action reducers. So it's very much similar to actions. So either you can give the reducer or the shorthand notation R, and you can give the reducer name. So again, I am using the same name user, and I am not giving any option. So again, it is asking whether we should add success failure actions. So I'm not opting for that. And again, it's asking for the create function. Yes. So now let's see what is the output. So you can see that a user reducer has been created, and it is again similar to what we created in the state. So we have a use state interface and the initial state, and here we are using a function, the create reducer utility, to create a reducer function, and again a spec file is also created. Now let's revert these changes and try out the other options. So it is very much similar to the previous one. So we can skip the creation of the tests, and we can turn off the creators. So the create reducer function will not be used, and we can turn on the API as we previously saw. And here you can see that the reducer was created in the like the root folder itself. So again, we can provide the flat false option, and also we have the group option. Now let's run this and see what happens. So now you can see that it is created as a group, like inside the reducers folder, whatever name which we gave for the reducers, it will create a folder with that name. That is due to the flat option. And within that, our user reducer is created, and the spec file is also skipped. So now if you go here, you can see that it is using a plain reducer function, and not using the create reducer utility. So one more option that is available in the reducer schematics is the module option. So you can provide the module in which you need to register the reducers. So I have given app module.ts. Now if you go to the app module, you can see that it is trying to import our user reducer, and it has been added as a for feature. So here in the user feature key has been added, and the reducer from that file has also been imported. So now let's try out the schematics for creating selectors. So it is ng generate se, and you can give the selector name. So I am not providing any option, and it is also not asking for any option. So if you go to the selector, it is a very basic selector. Actually, no code has been generated, only the feature selector and the selector has been imported in the file, and also an empty spec has been created. So now let's try out, like here you can see it is generated in the app, the root folder. So now let's try out the other options. So again, we have the skip tests and the flat option, and also the group option. So now let's run this. So now the spec file is not created, and the folder, as you can see, it has been grouped based on selectors, and also the name of the selector, the user, it has created a folder, and within that it has placed the user selector. So now let's see how we can create container components using Ngrx schematics. So the command is ng generate co. Again, I am giving the name user itself. So it has created a user.component.ts and registered it within our app module.ts. So if you go into the component, you can see that the store has automatically been injected into the constructor. So now let's revert this and try out the other options. So the one of the options that you can give is you can provide the root of our reducer, the path of the reducer you can provide here. It will automatically import that reducer within our component. So let's try that out. So here in the user component, you can see that they have imported the path, the reducer from the path which we have provided in the state option. So that's only change from the previous command. Now finally, let's try out the schematics for creating effects. So it is similar, ng generate. You have to give ef, so that's for effects, and give the effect name. So I am again giving it as user. So it is asking for the module. So I am giving app module.ts. It's asking whether we need success or failure actions and giving it as no. And it's asking whether you need to create a function, giving it as yes. So if you go to the folder, you can see the user effect has been created. It's basically a service, and inside that the action has been injected. And if you go to the app module, you can see that the effects module has been imported, and it has been added as a for feature since we did not give the root flag. So now let's try out the other options. So one option is the API. So that's for the success failure. And other is the creators, and giving it as false. We can give the module which we gave earlier, app.module.ts. Then we have the root option. So if you provide the root, it will create the for root instead of the for feature. So I have run the commands. So one main difference you can see here, it has been created as a for root instead of the for feature. So other than that, most of the things are very much similar, and we have the option to skip the test or the spec file. We'll try that out, and also you can see that Currently, the effects has been created in the root folder. We can change that as well. So I am adding skip tests and flat false along with the group option. So I am removing the creators as well as the API also. Now let's run the command. So now you can see that the folder structure has changed. It has created a folder called fx and inside that a folder called user. This is because due to the group and the flat options, and inside the app module it has again created the for root. So one more option is there where we can create an empty initial fx. So I'm clearing it and I will add the minimal flag. So you can see that no fx is created and the fx module is registered with an empty array. Hope you are able to get familiar with the different schematics commands that are available in the Ngrx schematics. See you soon. Thank you.